Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about my work hours. So let's get into it. So the question here was a little bit of a story, but let's see here. Hey Frederick, how do your work hours usually look like? Do you prefer starting early and finish early, and how do you work over 8 hours? And how often do you work over 8 hours? The reason why I'm asking this question is that I've noticed that some of my coworkers start really early and then they finish late, so they actually work more than 8 hours on a regular basis. Although the benefit of starting early is that you can quit early too. I think this might I think it might be bad since you will leave the office while there are coworkers who might need your help. So I'm not sure if I should continue starting at 8:30 as I usually do, or if I should show up earlier. And oh, there's a second part to this question. Is your employer aware of your YouTube channel, and can that possibly become an issue if someone started creating a channel? Alright, so there's a two-parter here. So, short answer is I start really early, and the reason why I start really early is because I have a morning routine where I exercise and do all of these good things, and I usually wake up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., something like that. It used to be 5 a.m. Now it's like 6 because of the corona situation and so forth. But yeah, so fairly early, and so I do my exercising and all this stuff, and then I usually start work at 7 or 8 or something like that. And the reason why I do, and then of course I also this is just me personally. I usually have like a 5 minute lunch tops. I usually don't take in full hour lunch, and this is maybe specific to Sweden, but in our culture, our work culture here in Sweden, we have a hour of lunch every day, and we usually you don't get accounted for that time, like you don't get paid for that time. So it's basically, if you take an hour lunch, you're gonna have to work 1 hour longer, right? But I don't really like that because I want to get home as quickly as possible, because I have another training regime that starts as soon as I get home, because I only have so many hours in a day, and if it's going to be possible for me to go and exercise twice a day and make these videos and work on projects and stuff like that, I actually need every single minute that I can get. So that is just my personal setup, and the thing is that I wrote back to the subscriber and I said I don't think that you need to worry about when you actually get in, because the whole point of having flexible hours is that you should be able to be flexible so that it fits your schedule. And if you have coworkers who are working consistently overtime, that's their deal. I've touched on this question before. That's not a reflection on you. And if it ever were to come to a point where your employer would mention to you that, oh, you're not working as hard as everybody else, I've been here as well, I've had that comment once before, then I mean, this is much easier when you have a little bit of seniority and you know that it's really not it's not a big deal, because you can always get another job if things go south. It might be harder for you if you're a junior developer to say this, but like when I had that comment from a employer, I simply told them that, oh yeah, I would well, no, I don't work overtime unless it's actually needed, because I believe that there has to be a balance between work and free time. And since you're not paying me to work overtime, I would prefer it if we actually come to an agreement where, if the company really needs me to work extra hours, I will put in that time and I will expect it back in flex time or something like that. But if you're suggesting to me that I should consistently work overtime just because somebody else feels that they prioritize work over their families and so forth, then we have a problem. Because if this company is only sustainable by people working more than you're paying them for, then I don't want to be part of this company. And they have understood that, because it is a very rational argument, and the only people who don't get that are not the sort of people that you should care. Well, you shouldn't care what they think. If you have a manager who really is trying to squeeze every single little hour out of you, unless you really need that job, evaluate whether or not this is a person you want to work for. But when it comes to flex hours, as I said, like you mean your coworkers, they could adjust their schedules as well. It's an individual thing, and as long as you have work hours that overlaps, you can collaborate when you need to. There is no problem. The one thing I would suggest any place of work to really think about if you're dealing with flex hours is to not have all that flexible hours for people who are very often dependent on other team members. An example would be I had this was a while ago. We had 2 junior developers who came in and wanted to work for us, and they were both in just their first weeks, they were kind of complaining a little bit because they wanted to be more flexible. They thought that they could just work from home if they wanted to, and so I explained to them that that's fine if you feel that you can. And then we had a discussion, and I explained, in these first few weeks, you will not be able to produce a single thing without our help, without the senior developers' help. You are going to have tons and tons and tons and tons of questions. And as long as you feel that you're going to be able to, I mean, working remotely is fine as long as you're connected to the people who can actually answer your questions. But in this scenario, they didn't just want to be flexible. They, in terms of where they work, they actually wanted to work different hours and so forth. And it's not it's just not. It's not a good setup if you have a junior developer who doesn't know how to progress and they are starting 3 hours earlier than everybody else or 3 hours later or so forth, and then they have to work overtime. I will ideally want them to overlap as much as possible with the senior experiences so that when they, at least for a while, until they get to a point where they can work independently. So for me, flexible hours is really something that if it's going to be respected and work in good faith, you need to be sure that people actually can work and not just sit around and not progress anywhere if you're going to make it work. And the second part of this question, is my employer aware of my YouTube channel? Yes, my employer is aware of this. And can that possibly become an issue if someone starts creating a channel? I don't think so. I mean, you've never heard me really use any of my coworkers' names or anything like that, except for when I praise them, because some of them are absolutely amazing and they need to be mentioned by name because that's how good they are. So I don't think that you should have to worry about that. You mean if you're, as long as you're only putting out something that is a reflection of what you truly feel. You've never, I want to believe at the very least that I've never said anything in any of my little videos here which I don't stand by, or I don't myself feel okay with showing to practically anybody. If you want to watch my boring rants on what I feel about programming, I can show that to absolutely anybody. I know that I have had managers who have and I even have coworkers sometimes that watch the channel, and they are mentioned in some of these videos. So I feel absolutely no stress over that whatsoever, and I don't think that you should either. So if you want to start a YouTube channel and vlog about your experiences as a programmer, I think that you should do that. And I mean, if you have a bathtub, you can muscle in on my business or my slice of the internet anytime you want. Just go for it. So what I want you to take away from this is that I personally like to start really early because I'm more of a morning person, and I actually get really, really tired around 3. I need my brain starts shutting down. So, and it also fits my schedule very, very well because I like to work out early, and then before I get home, I actually want to work out a little bit as well, and do some videos and so forth. So I'm a morning person, and when it comes to flex time, don't feel self-conscious if your times aren't overlapping, or if your coworkers are staying late, because remember, you don't actually know why they're staying late. They might actually be getting that time somewhere else. If they work overtime all the time, well, you don't know what the deal is. Maybe they're actually planning on getting that time back at some point, and if not, then that's on them. If they feel like they need to work overtime all the time, that's their problem. You have a contract with your employer, and that contract pays you for a certain amount of hours. I think it's a good idea if you have a unspoken agreement between you and the employer that if the company really needs it, go and put those extra hours as long as you get them back in some fashion, because at the end of the day, it is in both of your interests that the things are going well for the company. So sometimes you have to step up, I think, on both sides. on both sides of the employer-employee discussion. And then lastly, I would say that when it comes to YouTube channels and like what you do in your spare time, I mean, there's tons and tons and tons of developers who do this stuff. I have never felt that my employer, who is aware of this, has ever given me any problems with it. And the same thing goes for the other. I mean, there are tons of developers for Google and Facebook and so forth, and as long as they're just representing themselves, there's no problem. And yeah, so I think that you should go for it if you're interested. Have a great day.